Hello and welcome to Cinemondo, Link TV's World Cinema Series. I'm Pjer Scarlet, your host, and I'm speaking to you from the hills above Sarajevo, where for 4 years the longest siege in European history lasted. From these positions, Serb gunners rained shells down on the cosmopolitan and ethnically mixed population of this city. The film that you're about to see was made in Bosnia at the conclusion of the war, and we're here with its director, Pjer Zalica. Welcome to Cinemondo.
Thank you very much.
Pjer, you had made films here during the war, and then when the war was over, you made this fiction film. Could you set the context of it a little bit for us?
Well, yes. During the war, we were shooting documentaries because nothing else was possible, of course. And somehow it was much easier to be a director during that time, to find a subject to react, because filming was kind of mission. And when war finished, of course, I wanted to make my first feature, but it was not possible. And I needed like almost 4 years to finish script and to collect money for this movie. So finally, in a very strange way, it was much easier to be a filmmaker during the war than after. And the subject of my movie was the civil life in Bosnia after war. And it was not film about, it is not film about war, but it's film about bitter consequences of that period of war, because war is finished, but it still lives in us. And in Bosnia, even if you walk, it's kind of political statement, you know, and everybody's life is so irradiated with all negativities from that period or that times. But also, this is the war about the story about people who are not happy, but who are fighting for their happiness, and who really are deserving it. So finally, I think that it's an optimistic movie with a positive idea and message.
I agree. Let's have a look at Fuse, and we'll be back with Pjer Zalica after the screening. As we noted at the beginning of the film, Pjer Zalica was here in Sarajevo during the war, made documentaries about the war, and war has always seemed a kind of natural subject for cinema. So I'd like to ask him again, when the war was over, how did you go about making a film about this rather more difficult subject of how lives go on after a war?
Well, it was not so easy, in fact. While we were making documentaries, even though that was the situation, like you are telling a story about fire being in the middle of the volcano, somehow it was possible because of the importance, because of your... we had feeling that we are fighting, making the movies. After war, things becomes the same like in New York or in Prague, in London, but with no money, with no structure, with no state, in fact. So everything was extremely complicated, and every statement was extremely delicate. You know, it was delicate to say good morning, because everybody was explaining it or finding some hidden political subtext, you know, in the most simple things. So when I was writing the story, I wanted to say what was the most important things. It was my first feature, you know? So I wanted to say everything about the situation I'm living in. So I thought that how to find place where to live is very important. How people were killed is important. You know, so I was a young filmmaker with the possibility, you know, I had the possibility to make my first fiction. Then finally I found out that how to find any reason to live in this situation is the most important. And I started to dig, to explore these stories, how people decided to stay, or how do they decide not to commit suicide? You know, because the situation was really, it was hardly to find any reason why to stay. I mean, and I think that I found it in a simple fact that if you want to go further, your head should be turned in that direction, not in opposite direction. And one of the major problems in this region, and maybe globally, is that people are really overburdened with past, you know. And you cannot look at past if you are interested in future. You should not forget past. That's why I'm finishing movie with a sequence when the son talks, the guy talks with his dead father and brother, and telling him, okay, I love you, but just leave me alone. because he decided to go further. It doesn't matter if he's go to Germany, to Sweden, to States, or to stay in Bosnia. For me, it was important that he decided to leave and to find something which is important to him. You know, some importance, some essential importance of life in which he trusts.
It occurs to me, although our viewers won't have seen this film, that your next film, Days and Hours, is also set in Bosnia after the war. But if I remember correctly, by the time of that film, which was 2 years later, people aren't speaking about the war. There's no direct reference to it, but you feel it palpably in every moment of the film.
Yeah, in a very strange way. From in every split second, you could feel that the burden of war, the burden of the shadow of these dark times. Even though film talks about one simple day of a guy who come to his uncle to repair his boiler, his water heater. Instead of that, he repaired his heart. Right. And I think that this is really nice. For me, it was quite big adventure, because it's hard to make story without strong narrative line, you know, without big action, you know. So I think that it was quite a luxury to have a possibility to make film like this one, to deal with the microsurgery of human soul, you know, to try to find an action in a simplest conversations, you know. I got a lot of messages and a lot of people told me that this film helped them to, in fact was really interesting and nice to them and helped them to love life, better than before, which is, I mean, very nice compliment. On the other hand, there were a lot of people who says that it was really boring. So I don't know.
Well, if there were any of them watching Fuse tonight, they've turned off by now, but for those of you who made it through it, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only US network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.